Welcome to our channel, where we bring you suspenseful tales that will keep you up all night. Tonight, get ready for 3 true sleepover horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us for a sleepless night of horror stories.
Hey there, folks. You won't believe what happened to me and my buddies during a sleepover one summer night. We were just a bunch of regular teenagers looking for some excitement during our break. So, we decided to have a sleepover at my grandpa's old cabin deep in the forest. The place was dusty and full of old stuff, memories of a bygone era. We spent hours laughing and reminiscing, but then we decided to explore the attic. Man, that was where we found it. A dusty old board game that looked like it had seen better days. We decided to give it a shot. What harm could an old board game do, right? So, we set it up on the creaky old dining table. The game was called Fate's Fortune, and the rules were weirdly complicated. We didn't pay much attention to them, though. The game started innocently enough, moving pieces, rolling dice, and drawing cards. But then, something strange happened. The game predicted things, little things at first, like what song would come on the radio next or who would win in a thumb war. We laughed it off as coincidence, but as the night wore on, the predictions became more accurate. One card predicted that my buddy, Mike, would spill soda all over himself, and he did. Another card said that Sarah would get a phone call from her crush, and she did. We were freaked out, but also kind of excited. It was like we had a crystal ball. Then, things took a dark turn. The game predicted that a big storm would hit, and we'd be stuck in the cabin. We checked the weather, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. But guess what? An hour later, thunderclouds rolled in, and a downpour began. We were starting to get scared now. The game seemed to be controlling our fate. We drew another card, and it showed us that something terrible would happen to one of us. We panicked, trying to figure out how to avoid it. That's when we had an idea. What if we used the game to our advantage? We drew a card that showed a pile of money. We decided to play the lottery with the numbers on the card, and guess what? We won. It was a huge amount of cash, and we felt like we were invincible. But then, we got greedy. We drew a card that predicted we'd find a hidden treasure. We searched the whole cabin, digging up the backyard, and finally found an old chest filled with gold and jewels. It was unbelievable. But that's when things went terribly wrong. The next card showed fire, and we panicked. We tried to put out the fire, but it spread too fast. We barely made it out of the cabin alive, but the treasure was gone, reduced to ashes. We realized we couldn't control fate. The game had lured us into its twisted web, making us believe we could change our destiny. But in the end, it showed us the price of our greed. So, that's the story of the board game that predicted our fate. It's a lesson we'll never forget. Be careful what you wish for, folks, because sometimes you might get it, and it could cost you more than you ever imagined. It all started on a stormy night when I called my friends over for a sleepover at my place. We had a babysitter watching over us that night, a woman named Sarah. As the rain poured outside, we gathered in the living room, eager for some scary stories. Sarah seemed like the perfect storyteller. She had this eerie vibe about her, like she'd been through some spooky stuff in her life. She started with a story about an old abandoned house down the street, said it was haunted by the ghost of a long-dead witch. We were all wide-eyed, hanging on to every word she said. But little did we know, Sarah was just getting started. Her next story was about a creepy old doll. She said it was cursed and could come to life at night. We were trembling with fear, but we couldn't get enough of her tales. As the night went on, Sarah's stories got darker and scarier. She told us about a phantom hitchhiker who lured unsuspecting travelers to their doom. And then there was the tale of the haunted mirror that showed you your worst nightmares. We were all terrified, but we begged her for more. She didn't disappoint. Her next story was about a man who could control people's minds with a single touch. She described how he used his power to commit unspeakable crimes. But here's the twist, folks. As Sarah was telling us these spine-tingling stories, she was also watching us closely, like a hawk. And she had this strange glint in her eye, like she was enjoying our fear a bit too much. As the night wore on, one of my friends got curious and decided to sneak into Sarah's room. He wanted to see if she had any more scary stories hidden away, but he found something much more shocking. Inside her room, he discovered a newspaper article with a headline that sent shivers down our spines. It had a picture of Sarah, but she looked different, younger. The headline read, "Babysitter wanted for series of unsolved crimes." We were petrified, realizing that the babysitter who had been sharing these horrifying stories with us was a wanted criminal on the run. She'd been using the stories to distract us from her true identity. Panicking, we tried to come up with a plan to escape. But before we could make a move, Sarah walked into the room with a wicked grin on her face, knowing her cover was blown. What happened next? Well, you'll have to use your imagination. Let's just say that it was a night we'd never forget. A night when fiction and reality blurred into one chilling tale. So, remember folks, sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones you hear. They're the ones you live through. We decided to explore the old attic. You know, the kind of place filled with dusty boxes and forgotten memories. We thought we'd find some old toys or maybe some cool vintage stuff. But what we found was way more than we bargained for. Tucked away in a corner, covered in cobwebs, was an old diary. It looked ancient, like it had been there for ages. Curiosity got the best of us, and we decided to take a look. The diary belonged to someone named Emily, and it was filled with disturbing entries. She wrote about seeing strange figures in the house, shadows that moved on their own, and eerie whispers in the dead of night. We shivered as we read her words, feeling a chill in the air. But what really sent shivers down our spines were Emily's claims of a tragic tale. She wrote about a dark force that had tormented her family for generations, a malevolent entity that sought to devour their souls. It was like something out of a horror movie. As we read on, we realized that the diary wasn't just a collection of Emily's thoughts. It was a warning. She wrote that the dark force could only be contained as long as no one knew about it. It thrived on fear and curiosity, and once awakened, it could never be put back to sleep. We were spooked, to say the least, but there was something that didn't add up. The diary felt too convenient, like it was placed there for us to find. And as we read more, we started noticing subtle hints that Emily might not have been a victim after all. The entries became more manipulative, urging us to investigate further, to uncover the dark secrets of the house. It was like the diary was trying to get into our heads, to make us curious, to make us its unwitting accomplices. We knew we had to stop reading, to put the diary away, but it was like we were under a spell. The more we read, the more we felt drawn into Emily's tragic tale, and the more we felt the presence of something malevolent in the attic. That's when we heard it. A whisper, just like Emily had described. It was faint at first, but it grew louder and more sinister. We finally snapped out of it and slammed the diary shut. We ran out of the attic, leaving the diary behind. It felt like the house itself was breathing a sigh of relief. We never went back up there, and we never spoke of what we found. But to this day, I can't help but wonder if Emily's diary was a warning or a trap. Was she a victim? Or was she the malevolent force herself, trying to manipulate us into unleashing its dark power? So, remember folks, sometimes the scariest stories aren't just in books. They're right there in your own attic, waiting to be discovered, waiting to change your life forever.
If you want second part of this video, let me know in the comments section. And do like and subscribe my channel for more horror stuff.